Sirlon George, and today, we're going to be talking about AAC, and AAC is Alternative Augmentative Communication. I am going to be presenting on what is AAC, who should be using AAC, why use AAC, when we should be using AAC, and where should be using AAC. And I am Sirlon George, as I said before, speech language pathologist. So let's start with what is AAC. Now, AAC means augmentative alternative communication. Augmentative meaning it means to add to someone's speech. So if somebody already have speech or maybe have some speech but unable to really express themselves fully, we can add something to their speech to help them express themselves to the best of their ability. An alternative means to be used instead of speech. So if somebody has no speech at all, we have to find an alternative way in order to help them to be able to express themselves. And AAC generally is a whole topic in itself. It's an educational practice that attempts to compensate and augment or increase temporarily or permanently for those with disabilities who struggle with speech and language production and comprehension in spoken and written modes. So it's a big definition, but it's a whole topic in itself that really explores helping basically those who are unable to express themselves using a variety of ways and aiding them as best as we can to help with better expressive language as well as receptive language, being able to understand. All right, so let's move on. Who needs AAC? Generally, a child whose speech is not developing within the realm of what is considered normal or is not likely to develop normal speech due to pre-existing conditions is a potential for a candidate for AAC. So just to kind of add to this, much of a child's cognitive and social and academic progress depends on communication. And AAC has been shown to enhance a child's ability in all of these areas. So even if a child's speech is not developing the way it should, having something to help with that speech development or language development really makes a big impact on a child's overall development, on their cognitive development, on their social development, and their academic progress. So not because a child is not using words or is not verbal or partially verbal does not mean that they don't have something to say or that they don't know what's happening. It's just that we have to figure out a way to be able to help with that expressive language. So why AAC? AAC provides the means for the child to make choices and indicate their desires and likes. Everybody has something that they would like to say or share. And again, not because a child is unable to express themselves verbally, that doesn't mean that they don't have anything to say. In fact, giving a child more control over the environment is often one of the first goals of a communicative program. A child with a communication impairment is highly at risk for something we call learned helplessness. And this is adults assume that a child is unable to express themselves or unable to express themselves in the way that they would like, and the adults around them or their caretakers, they anticipate and often misinterpret the child's needs, and as a result, the child kind of relinquish any attempt to make his or her desires known and become extremely passive. So learned helplessness is something we don't want to promote in our children, and that is why we will use AAC, because as I said, it allows for the child to make choices and indicate desires and likes and comments and could ask questions, because at the end of the day they are a person and should be given the right to do so. It allows a child to be an active participant in the choices they can make for their own lives, and it gives a child a voice, basically. When should we use AAC? AAC is necessary when a child's speech and language milestones are not being met. If we look at a child's milestone like around age 2 or 3, we that's kind of like the age where we realize a child's speech and language is not developing. If they are not using many words or they are finding other ways to express themselves, this might be a time to come in and use some kind of AAC to help with the expressive language. And if a child is using few words to communicate, AAC also definitely could be a good time to help with this. And if a child is attempting to communicate but unable to do so effectively, so may have some words, might be using more gestures than words, or not using any gestures at all, and having a hard time really expressing themselves, some form of AAC might be necessary in these cases. And if the adults communicates for the child because they think the child is unable to do so, from like what I just in the last slide, we want to not promote learned helplessness. We want to assume that the child has something to say always, and not talk for them or think for them, but always giving them an opportunity to do so in whatever way that they can. And with the support of AAC, we can definitely help do this. Where can you use AAC? Everywhere and anytime. It doesn't really matter. We can use AAC in daily routines. We can use an AAC during social outings. Example, at the grocery, going to the restaurant, going to grandma's house, going to the zoo, anywhere, everywhere. At school, there is always an opportunity to communicate, and we can always create an opportunity to communicate. There's always an opportunity for a child or for an adult to engage in some form of communication with a child. And if a child is not verbal, partially verbal, having trouble with expressive language, this is where AAC comes in. And we're going to get right into the types of AAC right now. So types of AAC generally starts off with the no or low tech AAC, and these are the ones that doesn't require any kind of technical support. So things like this little device here is called a Big Mac, and really it's a big button that you record your voice in it, you push on it, and it will replay whatever message that you recorded in the device itself. So let's say, for instance, for example, I use it sometimes for my kids coming in for session. I'll have a picture of hello on there, and it'll have a picture of myself actually, and I'll record my voice, and it'll say hello auntie. So when I say hello to them, they can push on it, and it says hello. Then I have another device called a Go Talk 9, which generally kind of works in the same way as the Big Mac, in the sense that you record messages in there. And if you notice, there are like 9 grids, and in each one of those grids there are pictures, and you would record a message to match the picture. So let's say there's a picture of crayons there on that grid. You record crayons, and when you push on the picture there that has the picture of the crayons, it'll say crayons. So this is a nice way to have like a multiple messages for a child to participate in this particular activity here. And this Go Talk 9 looks like something that will happen at school. So it looks like there's a school bag on there, there are crayons and scissors and pencils. So if a child wants a pencil, the adult would not just give the child a pencil, but it should give the child the opportunity to ask for one. And then there's the picture communication symbols. So any kind of visual that will help to promote a child's ability to ask for things or comment for things. So there I have just some 3 visuals that has it says story, snack, toys, and lunch there. So just kind of telling you what's happening maybe during a school day or so. It's at the top there, it has a sentence strip that says I want juice. So the child, partially verbal, non-verbal, can look at these visuals. We teach them how to use them, of course, and point to each one that says I want juice. You're saying those words, but they're actually seeing those visuals, and they're bringing these visuals to you or pointing to them while you're saying it. But the thing is that this form of low-tech or no-tech AAC allows the child to use these visuals in order to be able to get basic wants and needs met. So here's an example of a little guy using visuals, no-tech AAC visual supports, to request during an activity. Talk about it in a minute.
Should we try next? Red car. Ready, set, go! Which one should we try next? The green car. Ready,
see me and this little guy playing with cards, as you see.
Which one should we
In
try
front
next?
of him, he has some
green
visuals
card.
with colors.
Ready,
yellow,
set,
green.
go! Which one should we do
Before
next?
I give him a card,
A
I ask
blue
him which one do you
card.
want to play with.
Ready,
I'm
and
teaching him here how to use it.
go!
Oh
No! Which one should we do next? Which one do you want to try next?
Color,
Yeah.
and I give him that particular card. So let's say, for instance, I held up the red card and he pointed to the red. So we're now here teaching. I'm now here teaching him how to use those visuals to request. Eventually, I really would like if I hold up all the cards, the red, yellow, blue, and green, and he has his visual supports in front of him, his AAC, his no-tech AAC, and he can go in and touch or give me a red visual, or touch or give me a blue visual, and whatever visual he gives me, I would give him the corresponding card. So that was a nice example there of using no-tech AAC in a simple little game playing with cards. Here is another one. It's this little guy. He is at school, and if he has, if you notice, that is a communication binder I made for him, and on it says, he has two visuals. It says, "I feel tired," and he's laying down on his teacher's lap. And this little guy does not use many words, but he uses his visuals really well to say what he wants. So the visual supports in no-tech is not just for requesting things. It's for being able to use language right across the board, to ask, to comment, to request, to share feelings. And here he was feeling tired. Although he doesn't say that verbally, his teachers have learned how to read his behaviors, and he kind of knows how to go in now in his communication book that's full of visuals and pull out that visual that says tired. And here we are, and this is literally being used at school. So it's a nice example too of a no-tech AAC at school. Here we have an example of a low-tech, so kind of above the no-tech, the visuals. It is a device, the GoTalk 9, like I showed you earlier. It's a device that has 9 grids, and we make visuals for the grids, and you record your voice in each one of the grids. And as the user pushes on the grid, it'll say whatever you record. So let's take a look, and we'll talk about it in a minute. Okay, so I'm gonna stop that there for a minute. So as you can see, we were doing an animal puzzle, and I know the sound was a little low, but the recording says "I want," and there's the pictures of all the animals that are represented in the puzzle. And every time he wanted one of the pieces, he will push on the "I want" button, and he'll push on the animal. So it says "I want elephant," and I'll give him the elephant piece. He'll push on the "I want" again. "I want zebra," and I'll give him the zebra piece. So he is using his low-tech AAC device to be able to ask for a piece of the puzzle. Yes, he can do this puzzle on his own, but it's really a nice opportunity to kind of sit there and have like a small conversation. What do you want, and what you want? And as we went along, I definitely could have said, make the sounds of those animals to encourage some verbalization from him, because I think this little guy had some verbals, but definitely needed some sort of AAC to enhance his low verbal expressive language. And this GoTalk 9 was really a great way to helps augment his current level of expressive skills. So that was the go-to of mine. Tell me what you want. You want gorilla coming up. Here you go. What you want? What else do you want? A lion coming up. There you go. Excellent. Penguin. Got it. Good job, Human. What else? Camel. Good. Nice work, giraffe. We have the gorilla in already. The tiger. 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 Good. And then we have other types of AAC high-tech. This is a device called a Dynavox, and it's a really high-tech device. It's definitely a device specifically made for communication, and it's digital, and you have to learn how to program it. There's lots of pages in there, and it you push on buttons and it'll say things. You can type things in there as well. Very high tech and very expensive. I don't tend to use devices like this only because, one, they are pretty expensive, and most of the time it's really, really very hard to get a device like this. But I like to show people what high tech devices could look like. And we've come a long way from devices like this, and we have communication apps on our tablets and our iPads, which works very similar to a dedicated device for communication. And I have here using Speak for Yourself on an iPad. Let's take a look how she uses it to pretty much express and tell us what's going on. So we have this little girl here, and she does have words, but often times have a very, very hard time with her breath support. So talking for a long time, it becomes very difficult for her. So in her communication app on the iPad, she typed, I think I had asked her earlier, who takes you to school? And she typed in Rosemary takes me to school, using a virtual keyboard in that app. And let me tell you, she was amazing using this app, because we could really have all types of conversations. She's able to express herself any which way that she wanted by just typing things in, and it'll speak for her what she wanted. So that's an example of a communication app on a device, a high-tech device, we'll call it like that. So AAC at home. Kids generally learn how to speak by hearing their parents, teachers, siblings, and other people around them speak all the time. And similarly, AAC learners also need to see what it looks like to communicate using their AAC system in real conversations. So we have to really treat these AAC, different types of AAC, just like we would treat if a child had words, were able to use their actual words to communicate. We have to see the value of the AAC and treat it as such. So how do you do this? let's talk a little bit about some tips. So we're going to, at home, I always tell parents start with simple visual supports or a visual schedule, so no tech, AAC. Using visuals are always a really great way to help with that. Start with one thing, for the child to be able to request something or talk about something. Just start very simple with one thing. Use it as an essential part of the daily routine. Use your visuals as an essential part of the routine. Again, treating the visual as if it were the child's words. Continuing to refer to the visuals when communicating about whatever information it is showing. And treat it as a valuable tool. Treat it as a child's words, as I keep saying. And use it as a source of stimulate conversation and language enrichment. As I can't stress on this point enough, using these visuals as if it were the child's words, use it as a way for them to be able to use it to talk to you about things. And most important, be prepared as much as you can, be persistent and be consistent. Just like we will talk to a child, neurotypical child, who is developing language in a neurotypical way, we're always talking to them, we're not expecting them always to respond back to us, but we're always in their face and we're always interacting with them. The same thing with a child who does not have words, some words, or a combination of words and gestures. We want to always, be able to find a way, and that's through AAC, to be able to have them to be able to communicate with us in the best way as possible. All right, so here are some things that some visuals you can start using at home. Product packages and labels. So here I have like a board full of snacks, and I just cut out the front package of the popcorn or whatever it is. And I always tell parents this is a good way, if you know you have your child has a particular snacks, cut out those snacks, use those actual product labels. So you could ask them, what do you want to eat? Don't assume and just bring in some nibbles or just give them some chips. Ask them, do you want chips or do you want macaroni and cheese? And let them point to it. Maybe they can say it, maybe they can look at it, and in that way you're having a little back and forth conversation there. That's boom right there, simple AAC at use. You can use coupon menus. If you go to McDonald's or Starbucks or wherever it is you're going these days, grab a menu or whatever it is. It always has the pictures of the items that are up there, and you could ask your child before they go, what are you going to get today? Are you going to get French fries? Do you want a burger? If you're going to the grocery store, do you want to buy your favorite fruit? Because they have the pictures on the coupon there, but use it in this practical way, and it's not something that you have to actually go out and make. These coupons and menus are already there. The main thing is that you're using them as a visual support and to help encourage and help stimulate language. At home, you can actually use objects as well. So visuals does not always have to be a picture, it could be the actual object. And I love this one here. I found a parent use it as what to do when the child gets into the bathroom. Brush your hair, there's a brush there. Wash your face, there's a rag. And brush your teeth, there's a toothpaste and a toothbrush. And something like this might seem a little obvious, or like, why would I even do this? But it also encourages our children to be independent, as well as it shows them the steps and things to do as well, and actually using the objects of things. And you're not over them telling them, oh, you have to brush your hair first, or you have to wash your face, or whatever order that you're doing it in, that they can see the visual right there, which are the actual objects, and actually go ahead and work their way through this routine in the bathroom. I have visual schedules as well. Here I have one that says to do and all done, and this is for like at school. You come in and you say hello. After you say hello, you put in all done. Then we're going to read a book. After we read a book, we put it on the all done sign. Then we're going to play some games. When we're done with the game, we take the visuals and we put it on the all done side. Then it's time for blow bubbles. Take it on and put it on the all done side, and it's time to go home. And these visuals really set out nicely for the child what their day is going to look like, and we can put those visuals to suit that child's day. But it also gives a nice representation for them, what is to be expected, and they also understanding what's happening to them in their environment. Here's another nice visual schedule as well. After school schedule. I play, I clean up, I wash up, I have dinner, I go to the toilet, I brush my teeth, and it's time for bed. And after I do all of those, after each one, I take a picture and I put it in that all done. So that's another nice visual support there at home as well. And no tech AAC. Here's a really great one I always encourage parents to get. It's the steps into how of washing hands. Not that we don't think our kids cannot wash on their hands, but sometimes they miss some of the steps. Either they go in and they take a lot of soap first, then turn the pipe on or whatever. So it really lays out to them. First I turn the pipe on, then I wash, then I get some soap, I scrub my hands, I rinse my hands, I turn the water off, and then I dry my hands. And while they're doing that, you're standing there in the beginning, talking them through each of the steps, so they're hearing the words that are matched to all those actions that they're seeing there up on the wall. Another nice quick AAC one at home too. This is a really fancy calendar, but you can use like a big blank calendar and get pictures of things that are happening every day. So your kids know what are coming up. You can talk about it because the visuals are up there. Again, the vocabulary input is important as well. So using a calendar is always a good one too. Use the camera on your phone to take pictures of familiar places. Example, going to school, grandparents' house, going to the beach. Unfamiliar places. You have to go to the doctor or something. So you take a picture of this is where we're going. And talking about people that are familiar to the child, the teacher, the therapist, whatever, setting the kids up, using literal pictures on your camera. This is a form of AAC as well too, so you can talk about it and you can show your child these pictures. So again, you're prepping them for either going somewhere or getting them ready to go to a familiar place, or talking about where you're going to go. Today we're going to grandma's house, and you have a picture of grandma's house, so using your camera on your phone is really a good way too. And I want you to think about what are some pictures that you could come up with. What do you think you might take a picture of that you can show your child to talk about something, for them to understand what you're saying, for them to know what you're talking about, so think about that. Visuals to remind and organize. This is a parent who made one for their child's where to put their shoes. Pictures of some shoes, and it's just a simple plastic cover. And she got a picture of shoes, and every time they come in, they know exactly where to put their shoes. More tips for making communication happen at home. Always presume competence. Always assume that your children know what you're talking about. Use a robust vocabulary. Don't water down words. Say the words as they should be said, or whatever they might be. Create opportunities for your kids to talk, to verbalize. Given choices, putting things up on a high shelf, putting their snacks up on a high shelf, and they have to use that visuals that you made with their snack pictures, so they can tell you what they want without you assuming. Inspire, motivate, and encourage them to use their AAC system, whatever it might be. Honor all forms of communication, whether it's gestures, whether it's sounds, whether it's partial words. Honor all those communication that your child is trying to tell you something. Model with expectation. Model the way that you would want them to say some things, and expecting them to respond. Even if they don't, it's okay, as long as you're modeling for them. Attribute meaning to the things that they're saying. So that kind of ties in with the honor all communication. So your child looks at something and says, and they probably wanted to say cookie. You say the word cookie for them. Attribute meaning to everything that they're trying to express. Use wait time. If you ask a question or you say something, wait for them to respond. Even if they're not responding verbally, it might be for them to just look at you to acknowledge that you are trying to connect with them. Model one up. If your child is using one word, add another word. If they said cookie, more cookie. Cookie please, mommy cookie. Something along those lines. That's what model up means. And practice inclusion. Everybody is on board with your child AAC, or using some sort of AAC, a visual support at home or something. Everybody should be on board. Promote literacy. Always reading to your child. If you have any of the visuals that you're using, you put the words on the top of it so they are connecting those words with the visuals as well. I always get this question: would AAC prevent natural speech? No, being able to communicate is the key, and a child who is unable to communicate effectively is unable to participate meaningfully in many activities, and is really at great risk for delays in cognitive, social, and emotional development. While it may be appropriate in some cases to continue to focus on speech, it is really unfair to leave a child with little or no means of having a way to communicate effectively. So, and most of the times I've seen it really helps promote the verbal speech, but sometimes that is not always in all cases. But if we do not give a child an opportunity to communicate, I think that is not such a good thing, as opposed to trying to make this child talk or use words. Communication is the main key. So I want you guys to think about this before I end. If you are unable to communicate using words, how would that change your life and even affect your relationship with others in the world? We all have something to say, something to share, and something to give to the world. If we are able to use our voice to do so, some form of AAC is therefore necessary to create a space where a person's voice can be heard. And on that note, I would say thank you for your time, and please think about AAC and start using it.